Have you ever noticed your emotions can change faster than your phone's battery percentage? In the morning you wake up motivated. By afternoon, one email ruins your mood. By evening you're questioning your entire existence. If that sounds familiar, you're not alone. But here is the real question. Are you feeling your emotions, or are your emotions controlling you? Stay with me till the end, because the last lessons will truly change your perspective on emotional mastery. My dear friends, today I want to speak to your heart, especially to those of you who feel overwhelmed, misunderstood, reactive, tired of overthinking, tired of apologizing for overreacting, tired of feeling too much. You are not weak because you feel deeply. You are struggling because no one taught you how to handle what you feel. We were taught mathematics. We were taught science. But nobody taught us what to do when anger rises, when jealousy bites, when fear paralyzes, when sadness sits quietly in our chest. And so we react. And later we regret. Let us begin this inner journey together. Have you ever noticed how quickly your emotions take over your decisions? One small comment, one delayed reply, one unexpected mistake, and suddenly your entire mood shifts. The body tightens, the mind races, words slip out, and later you sit quietly and think, why did I react like that? Here is the first truth I want you to understand. Your emotions are signals, not commands. Imagine you are driving your car on a long journey. Suddenly, a small red light appears on the dashboard. Do you panic and abandon the car in the middle of the highway? Of course not. You slow down. You observe. You check what that signal means. The light is not telling you to destroy the car. It is simply telling you to pay attention. Your emotions work the same way. Anger is a signal. It tells you something feels unfair or violated. Fear is a signal. It tells you something feels uncertain or unsafe. Jealousy is a signal. It tells you something feels insecure within you. Sadness is a signal. It tells you something feels lost or deeply valued. But somewhere along the way, we stopped treating emotions as signals and started treating them as instruction. Anger says, shout. Fear says, run away. Jealousy says, compare yourself. Sadness says, withdraw from everyone. And we obey immediately. Let me share something interesting. A man once told me very confidently, I have anger issues. I just can't control it. I asked him, do you get angry at your boss? He said, no. I asked, do you get angry at a police officer? He said, no. I asked, do you get angry at your clients? He said, no. Then I asked, who do you get angry at? He smiled nervously and said, my family. So I said gently, then you don't have anger issues. You have selective expression. You see, if you can control your anger in certain situations, it means you have the capacity to control it everywhere. The problem is not lack of control. The problem is lack of awareness. Emotional mastery begins when you separate what you feel from what you do. You are not responsible for the first emotion that arises. That is natural. That is human. But you are responsible for a response that follows. Think about a wave in the ocean. You cannot stop the wave from forming, but you can learn how to surf it. If you panic, you drown. If you understand it, you ride it. Many people think strength means not feeling anything. But that is not strength. That is suppression. And suppressed emotions do not disappear. They accumulate. They wait. And one day they explode. True strength is feeling everything, but reacting wisely. Let us make this practical. Next time you feel anger rising, instead of saying, I am angry, say, anger is present. Notice the difference. The first statement makes anger your identity. The second statement makes anger a temporary visitor. You are not your emotion. You are the observer of your emotion. When fear comes, instead of saying, I am scared, say, fear is visiting me right now. Suddenly there is space. Suddenly there is awareness. Suddenly you are in control again. And this space changes everything. When you treat emotions as commands, you live reactively. When you treat emotions as signals, you live consciously. Most of the regrets in life are not because of what we felt. They are because of how we acted while feeling. How many friendships were damaged because of one emotional outburst? How many opportunities were lost because of fear-based decisions? How many relationships became distant because pride reacted before patience? Emotions are powerful, but they are not permanent. A thought appears. It creates a feeling. The feeling creates an impulse. The impulse demands action. But if you interrupt the chain, if you pause at the feeling stage, you reclaim your power. This is not about becoming cold. It is about becoming conscious. You can still feel anger but choose calm words. You can still feel fear but take courageous steps. You can still feel sadness but continue showing up. Mastery does not remove emotion. It refines response. And here is something beautiful: when you begin observing your emotions instead of obeying them, you will discover patterns. You will notice certain triggers, certain insecurities, certain expectations. That awareness becomes your teacher. Emotional signals are not your enemy. They are guides pointing toward areas that need healing, growth, or clarity. If anger appears frequently, maybe boundaries are missing. If jealousy appears frequently, maybe self-worth needs strengthening. If fear appears frequently, maybe faith needs deepening. Your emotions are not attacking you, they are informing you. So the next time your emotional dashboard lights up, don't panic. Don't accelerate recklessly. Don't crash relationships. Pause. Observe. Interpret wisely. Because the moment you stop obeying your emotions blindly is the moment you begin mastering them. And this is only the beginning of your transformation. Because once you understand that emotions are signals, the next question becomes very powerful. What do I do in that moment when the signal appears? And this brings us to the second life-changing truth. Between what happens to you and how you respond, there is a space. A very small space. Most people never notice it. But that space is where your freedom lives. Let me explain. Someone criticizes you in a meeting. Someone sends a harsh message. Someone ignores your effort. In that instant, something rises inside you. Heat, tightness, thoughts racing. And before you even realize it, you react. Words are spoken. Tone changes. Energy shifts. Later, when everything cools down, you say, I wish I had handled that differently. The problem is not that you felt hurt. The problem is that you did not pause. Emotional mastery is not about eliminating triggers. It is about expanding the pause between trigger and reaction. Imagine boiling water on a stove. When the flame is high and uncontrolled, the water spills over. It makes a mess. It burns. But when you reduce the flame, the water stays contained. The pause is your flame control. Most of us live on emotional autopilot. We react the way we have always reacted. We repeat patterns we learned in childhood. If someone raised their voice at us growing up, we either learned to shout back or to shut down. And now, as adults, we carry those same reactions into every situation. But here is something empowering. Reaction is habit. Response is choice. Habits are automatic. Choices are intentional. The moment you pause, even for 5 seconds, you interrupt the habit. Try this. The next time you feel triggered, do not speak immediately. Take one deep breath. Slowly inhale. Slowly exhale. It sounds simple. But do you know what happens during that breath? Your nervous system shifts. Your heart rate stabilizes. Your thinking brain regains control from your emotional brain. You move from reaction to response. One young professional once told me, "Sir, when my manager criticizes me, I instantly feel defensive. I start justifying myself." I asked him, "Have you ever tried saying nothing for 10 seconds? He laughed and said, "That would feel awkward." I said, "Awkward for whom? Your ego or your growth?" Silence in a heated moment is not weakness. It is strength under control. Sometimes the most powerful response is a thoughtful pause. Many arguments escalate not because the issue is big, but because neither person pauses. One reacts, the other reacts stronger. And suddenly, what started as a small misunderstanding becomes a battlefield of egos. But imagine if one person simply slowed down. One person said, "Let me think about that." One person said, "I hear you." One person took a breath instead of throwing a word. That person becomes the emotional leader of the situation, and leadership always begins within. The space between trigger and reaction is tiny at first, so tiny you may miss it. Like a muscle, it grows with practice. At first, you may pause for 2 seconds, then 5, then 10. Eventually, that space becomes wide enough for wisdom to enter. And in that space, you can ask yourself powerful questions. What am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? What response will I be proud of tomorrow? That last question alone can change your life. What response will I be proud of tomorrow? Because many times, we choose the response that satisfies the present emotion, but damages the future relationship. Mastery means thinking beyond the moment. And here is something very practical. If you know a certain conversation may trigger you, prepare before entering it. If you are meeting someone who usually irritates you, decide in advance, today, I will listen more than I speak. Preparation strengthens pause. Even physically stepping away helps. There is wisdom in walking away temporarily, not to avoid but to stabilize. Some people think, if I don't respond immediately, I am losing. But in reality, when you respond immediately in anger, you have already lost control. Patience is not passive. It is powerful restraint. Look at nature. The strongest trees do not shake with every gust of wind. They sway, they bend slightly, but they remain rooted. When you learn to pause, you become like that tree. Words may come at you, situations may challenge you, but you do not collapse emotionally every time. And here is something deeper. When you expand that space consistently, you begin to notice something surprising. Many triggers lose their power. Why? Because awareness dissolves intensity. Earlier, criticism may have felt like a personal attack. But now, in that pause, you evaluate, is there truth in this? If yes, I will learn. If not, I will let it go. Suddenly, you are not reacting to everything. You are choosing what deserves your energy. That is emotional maturity. Maturity is not age. It is the ability to respond thoughtfully under pressure. And remember this, you cannot control how people speak to you. You cannot control how they behave. But you can control how long you allow them to control your mind. The pause breaks their control. The pause returns power to you. So practice it daily. Pause before sending that message. Pause before replying to that comment. Pause before raising your voice. You will be amazed at how many conflicts disappear in that small, sacred space. Because in that space lives your freedom. And as we go further, you will realize something even more profound. Your emotions are not only shaped by events, they are shaped by your thoughts about those events. And this next insight will transform how you experience every situation in your life. Now we are entering a very powerful layer of emotional mastery. Because even if you learn to pause, even if you create space, there is something deeper that determines what you feel in the first place. And that is this: your emotions are shaped by your thoughts, not by situations, not by people, not by circumstances, but by the meaning you give to them. Let me explain this gently. Two people can face the exact same situation. One feels broken, the other feels strengthened. One feels rejected, the other feels redirected. One feels humiliated, the other feels humbled. What is the difference? Interpretation. Imagine you send a message to someone important to you. Hours pass. No reply. One thought says, they are ignoring me. I am not important. Emotion, hurt, insecurity. Another thought says, they must be busy. I'll wait. Emotion, calm, patience. Same event, different thought, different emotion. Most of us believe emotions just happen. But emotions follow thoughts like shadows follow objects. The challenge is, most of our thoughts are automatic. Your mind is constantly narrating a story about everything happening around you. They did smile at me, something is wrong. I made a mistake, I am a failure. They succeeded, I am falling behind. And when these thoughts repeat often enough, they begin to feel like truth. But here is something life-changing: not every thought you think is true. Your mind is like a storyteller, and sometimes it exaggerates, sometimes it assumes, sometimes it dramatizes. Have you noticed how quickly your mind jumps to worst-case scenarios? One small health symptom. What if something is seriously wrong? One minor setback, my career is over. One disagreement, this relationship is falling apart. Your mind tries to protect you by predicting danger, but often it creates emotional storms where none are necessary. I once met a student who failed an important exam. He came to me and said, "My life is finished." I asked him gently, "Did you fail an exam or did you fail life?" He smiled slightly. His mind had magnified the event beyond proportion. Failure hurt. Yes, but the thought, "I am finished," created despair. This is why emotional mastery requires mental awareness. When a strong emotion appears, ask yourself, what thought created this feeling? If you trace back carefully, you will always find a belief underneath. Anger often comes from the thought, "This should not have happened." Jealousy often comes from the thought, "I am not enough." Fear often comes from the thought, "I cannot handle this." Sadness often comes from the thought, "I have lost something irreplaceable." The event may be real, but the emotional intensity depends on the story you attach to it. And here is the empowering part. You can question the story. When a negative thought appears, instead of believing it immediately, examine it. Is this completely true? Is there another way to see this? What would a wiser version of me think? This is not about blind positivity. It is about balanced perspective. For example, instead of "I failed, I am useless," try "I failed, I need to improve." Instead of "They rejected me, I am unworthy," try "They rejected me, maybe we were not aligned." Instead of "This challenge is too much," try "This challenge is uncomfortable, but I can grow through it." The moment you shift your thought, your emotional response shifts. Let me share something beautiful. Your mind is like a pair of glasses. If the lenses are dirty, everything you see looks unclear. You may blame the world for being blurry, but the real issue is the lens. Your beliefs are those lenses. If you believe people cannot be trusted, you will feel suspicious often. If you believe "I am not capable," you will feel anxious often. If you believe "life is unfair to me," you will feel resentful often. But if you slowly build healthier beliefs, "I am learning every day," "I can handle difficulties," setbacks are stepping stones, your emotional world begins to stabilize. And remember, changing thoughts does not happen overnight. Your mind has practiced certain narratives for years, but with awareness, you can retrain it. Start small. When something upsets you, write down what you are thinking. Seeing it on paper often reveals how extreme it sounds. Sometimes you will laugh at your own mental drama. And that laughter is healing, because emotional intensity reduces when you bring light to the thought behind it. You are not a prisoner of your emotion. You are a student of your thoughts. When you master your thoughts, emotion follow naturally. But here is something very important: if your body is constantly exhausted, overstimulated, and unhealthy, even good thoughts will struggle to stabilize you. Which brings us to something many people underestimate, and it can completely change your emotional strength. Your emotional discipline is deeply connected to your physical discipline. And this is where our journey becomes even more practical and powerful. Many people tell me, "I want emotional stability. I want peace. I want to stop overreacting." But then I gently ask them, "How are you sleeping? What are you eating? How much time are you spending on your phone? How often do you move your body?" And suddenly, there is silence. Because emotional mastery is not just psychological, it is physiological. Your body and your mind are not separate departments. They are one system. If your body is exhausted, your emotions become fragile. If your nervous system is overstimulated, your patience becomes thin. If your brain is flooded with noise, your clarity disappears. Let me paint a picture. Imagine you slept at 2:30 a.m. scrolling through social media. You wake up tired. You skip breakfast. You rush to work. Your body is already stressed. Your mind is already strained. Now someone gives you small criticism. On a well-rested day, you may have smiled and said, "Thank you, I'll improve." But on this exhausted day, it feels like an attack. Why? Because your emotional bandwidth is low. When the body is depleted, the mind reacts. You see, emotional discipline requires physical discipline. If you want calm reactions, you must build a stable foundation. Sleep is not laziness, it is emotional maintenance. When you sleep properly, your brain processes emotional experiences. It regulates mood chemicals. It restores balance. Without sleep, even minor issues feel overwhelming. And then there is food. What you consume becomes how you feel. If your diet is chaotic, excessive sugar, caffeine, junk, your energy spikes and crashes. Those crashes don't just affect your body, they affect your mood. I once met a young entrepreneur who said, "I don't know why I feel anxious all the time." After talking for a while, he admitted he consumed 5 cups of coffee daily and barely drank water. Sometimes we blame life when the issue is lifestyle. Then there is movement. When you exercise, even moderately, your body releases chemicals that reduce stress and increase resilience. You literally train your nervous system to handle pressure better. You don't have to become a marathon runner. Even a 30-minute walk daily can change your emotional baseline. Now let us speak about something even more subtle: digital overload. We are constantly stimulated. Notifications, messages, reels, news, comparisons, opinions. Your brain is not designed for endless input. When you wake up and immediately check your phone, you are giving the world access to your mind before you even meet yourself. Your emotions become reactive because your attention is scattered. Silence is powerful medicine. Spend even 10 minutes daily without your phone. No music, no distraction, just you and your breath. At first, it will feel uncomfortable because we are not used to sitting with ourselves. But slowly you will notice your thoughts slowing down, your breathing stabilizing, your emotional waves softening. Emotional storms reduce when inner noise reduces. Let me tell you something very important. You cannot live a chaotic lifestyle and expect a peaceful mind. Discipline is not restriction, it is protection. When you choose consistent sleep, you protect your mood. When you choose nourishing food, you protect your energy. When you choose movement, you protect your resilience. When you choose silence, you protect your clarity. Many people want emotional mastery without changing habits, but mastery requires alignment. If you water a plant inconsistently, expose it to harsh conditions, and neglect it, you cannot blame the plant for not blooming. Your mind is the same. Give it rest. Give it nourishment. Give it stillness. And here is something beautiful. When your physical foundation improves, you don't have to try so hard to stay calm. Calmness becomes more natural. You will notice you recover faster from stress. You don't spiral as deeply. You don't react as sharply. Your baseline shifts. Instead of living at a stress level of 8 out of 10 daily, you operate at 4 or 5. That difference changes how you experience life. And remember, emotional mastery is not about never feeling disturbed. It is about reducing unnecessary intensity. Physical discipline lowers unnecessary intensity. Now here is where we go even deeper. Even if your body is healthy, even if your mind is trained, there is still one major reason why people remain emotionally unstable. They expect others to manage their emotions. And this next lesson, if you truly understand it, will free you from so much frustration and disappointment. Let us explore that together. Now we are entering a very honest space. Because even if you sleep well, eat well, think better, pause before reacting, there is one silent habit that keeps many people emotionally disturbed. And that is this. We expect others to manage our emotions. We say things like, "You made me angry, you hurt me, you disappointed me, you ruined my day." But let me ask you something gently. Did they control your emotions, or did they trigger something already living inside you? There is a big difference. Imagine someone presses a button on a remote. The TV turns on. But the program that plays was already stored inside the television. In the same way, people press buttons. But the reaction comes from what is already stored within us. Our insecurities, expectations, fears, ego. If you expect constant appreciation, even small silence feels like rejection. If you expect perfection from others, small mistakes feel unbearable. If you expect everyone to understand you, misunderstanding feels like betrayal. Expectations silently create emotional dependency. And dependency creates instability. Many relationships suffer not because of big issues, but because of unmanaged expectations. I did so much for them. They did respond the way I wanted. I was there for them. They weren't there for me in the same way. I thought they would behave differently. Notice something. Suffering often comes not from what happened, but from what we expected to happen. Now, this does not mean you should not have standards. It does not mean you tolerate disrespect. It does not mean you accept toxic behavior. It means you stop giving others remote control access to your inner peace. There is a difference between loving someone and depending on someone for emotional stability. When your happiness depends entirely on someone else's behavior, you become fragile. If they praise you, you feel high. If they criticize you, you feel crushed. If they respond quickly, you feel valued. If they delay, you feel anxious. You are living on emotional roller coasters controlled by others. True emotional mastery begins when you say, "I am responsible for how I respond." People will act according to their level of awareness, not yours. Some people are impatient. Some are insensitive. Some are distracted. Some are struggling silently. If you expect everyone to behave according to your emotional needs, you will constantly feel disappointed. Instead, reduce expectations and increase acceptance. Acceptance does not mean approval. It means understanding reality as it is. For example, if you know someone is often late and you still expect them to be punctual every time, you will feel frustrated repeatedly. But if you accept this person struggles with time, you can adjust your response accordingly. You protect your peace. I once met a woman who was constantly upset with her husband. She said, "He never expresses appreciation the way I want." After talking more, I asked her, "Is he ungrateful or is he just not expressive?" She paused. Sometimes people love deeply but express differently. When we expect others to mirror our emotional language, we create unnecessary pain. Now here is something powerful. When you stop blaming others for your emotional reactions, you gain strength. Blame makes you powerless. Responsibility makes you powerful. If you say, "They made me angry," you are waiting for them to change before you can feel better. But if you say, "I allowed anger to take over," you immediately regain control. Because now change is in your hands. Taking responsibility does not mean you justify others' wrong actions. It means you refuse to let their behavior dictate your internal state. You draw boundaries calmly. You communicate clearly. You detach when necessary. But you do not surrender your emotional balance. There is a beautiful maturity that comes when you stop expecting the world to adjust to your moods. Instead, you adjust your responses with awareness. And something magical happens. You become less reactive. You begin to understand that everyone is fighting battles you cannot see. The colleague who snapped at you may be struggling at home. The friend who forgot your message may be overwhelmed. The stranger who was rude may be carrying stress. When you widen your perspective, your emotional intensity softens. And here is the most freeing realization: not everything is about you. Sometimes people's actions reflect their state, not your worth. When you internalize everything, you suffer unnecessarily. But when you understand that you are responsible for your response, not their behavior, your stability grows. And as you take this responsibility, something else becomes important. It is not enough to avoid blame. You must also learn to process emotions consciously instead of suppressing them. Because unexpressed emotions do not disappear, they accumulate. And in the next part of our journey, we will explore how to reflect on emotions wisely instead of burying them. This is where emotional mastery becomes truly transformative. Now we are stepping into a very delicate and powerful space, because once you stop blaming others, once you take responsibility, there is still one more danger, and that danger is suppression. Many people misunderstand emotional mastery. They think it means don't feel. They think it means stay strong. They think it means ignore it and move on. But suppressed emotions do not disappear. They settle quietly in the body. They build pressure in the mind. They wait for the right moment, and then they explode. Emotional mastery is not suppression. It is reflection. There is a big difference. Suppression says, I shouldn't feel this. Reflection says, why am I feeling this? Suppression pushes emotions down. Reflection brings understanding up. Let me explain this with something simple. Imagine you sweep dust under a carpet every day. From the outside, the room looks clean. But slowly the carpet begins to rise. One day, someone steps on it, and the dust spreads everywhere. That is what happens when you keep saying, it is fine. I am fine. It doesn't matter. Unprocessed anger becomes bitterness. Unprocessed sadness becomes heaviness. Unprocessed fear becomes anxiety. Reflection is emotional hygiene. Just like you bathe your body daily, your emotions also need cleansing. And cleansing begins with awareness. When you feel something strong, don't distract yourself immediately. Don't run to your phone. Don't drown it in entertainment. Sit with it for a moment. Ask yourself gently, what exactly am I feeling right now? Is it anger or is it hurt? Is it jealousy or is it insecurity? Is it frustration or is it disappointment? Often the first emotion we label is not the real one. For example, many times anger is actually pain in disguise. Someone criticizes you. You react angrily, but if you reflect, you may discover the deeper emotion is hurt. The criticism touched a sensitive belief about your worth. Reflection allows you to discover the root. And when you understand the root, the intensity reduces. Let me share something personal in spirit. There was a time when someone's comment affected me deeply. Outwardly, I smiled. I said nothing. But internally, it kept replaying in my mind. Later, in silence, I asked myself, why is this bothering me so much? And I realized it touched an insecurity I hadn't fully healed. The comment once hid the problem. The unhealed part was, reflection gives you this clarity. And clarity brings compassion toward yourself. Instead of saying, why am I so sensitive? You begin saying, there is something here that needs understanding. One powerful tool for reflection is journaling. When emotions feel overwhelming, write them down without filtering, without judging. When you see your thoughts on paper, they lose some of their emotional charge. Another powerful tool is mindful breathing. Sit quietly. Close your eyes. Focus on your breath. Notice the emotion in your body. Where do you feel it? Chest, stomach, throat? Instead of resisting it, observe it. Emotions, when observed without judgment, naturally rise and fall. They are like waves. If you fight a wave, you exhaust yourself. If you allow it to pass, it dissolves. Reflection also involves honest conversations with yourself and with trusted people. Sometimes speaking your emotion calmly reduces its intensity. But notice, the key word is calmly. Not venting violently, not blaming, not accusing, but expressing responsibly. For example, instead of saying, you never care about me, say, when this happened, I felt hurt. That shift changes everything. Reflection turns emotional chaos into emotional intelligence. And here is something very important. Be patient with yourself. Some emotions are connected to old experiences, childhood wounds, past betrayals, unmet needs. Healing takes time. Emotional mastery is not about becoming perfect. It is about becoming progressively aware. Every time you reflect instead of suppressing, you grow. Every time you understand instead of exploding, you mature. And gradually, something beautiful happens. You stop being afraid of your own emotions. You realize they are teachers. Anger teaches you about boundaries. Sadness teaches you about attachment. Fear teaches you about faith. Jealousy teaches you about self-worth. Reflection turns emotions into guidance. But now, we come to the deepest layer of all. Because even reflection, discipline, awareness, they all become stronger when your life is anchored to something greater than your temporary feelings. And this final lesson is the heart of emotional mastery. If you truly absorb it, your stability will not depend on circumstances anymore. Because you can pause. You can think better. You can live with discipline. You can reflect wisely. But if your life revolves only around your ego, your comfort, your image, your validation, your emotions will always remain fragile. The deepest form of emotional mastery comes when you anchor your life to a higher purpose. Let me explain this slowly. If your happiness depends on who praised you today, if your peace depends on how many people approved you, if your confidence depends on constant success, then your emotional state will fluctuate daily. One compliment, you feel high. One criticism, you feel low. One success, you feel powerful. One setback, you feel worthless. That is emotional instability rooted in ego attachment. But when your life is anchored in purpose, something greater than your temporary feelings, your emotional waves become softer. Think about a tree. A tree with shallow roots gets shaken by small winds, but a tree with deep roots stands steady even in storms. Purpose is your root. When you live only for yourself, everything feels personal. But when you live for contribution, growth, service, faith, meaning, you stop reacting to every small disturbance. Imagine two people facing rejection. One says, "They rejected me. I am not good enough." The other says, "Maybe this door closed because I am meant to serve somewhere else." The difference is not talent, it is anchor. When your identity is connected only to outcomes, you suffer with every fluctuation. But when your identity is connected to values, you remain steady. For example, if your purpose is to grow daily, then failure becomes feedback. If your purpose is to serve others, then criticism becomes guidance. If your purpose is to develop character, then challenges become training. Suddenly, emotions no longer control your direction, they inform it. Let me ask you something deeply personal. Why are you here? Not just physically, but in life. What are you building beyond comfort? Because if your goal is only comfort, then discomfort will always disturb you. But if your goal is growth, discomfort becomes part of the journey. Many people feel emotionally unstable because their life lacks direction. When there is no higher aim, small events feel huge. A negative comment feels like an attack. A small delay feels like disaster. A minor disagreement feels like betrayal. But when you know who you are and what you stand for, your emotional reactions reduce. You begin asking, does this really matter in the larger picture of my life? Will this affect my long-term purpose? Is this worth losing my peace over? Most of the time, the answer is no. And something magical happens when you connect your life to faith, to something divine, eternal, beyond ego. When you believe that your life has meaning beyond temporary success, fear reduces. Because you understand that every situation is shaping you. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And you begin asking, what is this teaching me? That shift alone transforms emotional suffering into spiritual growth. When you put purpose first, emotions take their rightful place. They become messengers, not masters. You still feel, you still experience joy, sadness, excitement, disappointment. But they do not dictate your identity. Your identity becomes rooted in character. You become the kind of person who responds with patience even when angry, with courage even when afraid, with gratitude even when life feels imperfect. That is strength, not loud strength, not dramatic strength, stable strength. And let me tell you something beautiful. When your emotions are anchored in purpose, you become safe for others. People feel calm around you because your mood does not shift with every small inconvenience. Your presence becomes grounding. And this is true influence. Emotional mastery is not about controlling everything outside. It is about aligning everything inside. When awareness increases, reactions decrease. When discipline increases, stability increases. When responsibility increases, power increases. When reflection increases, wisdom increases. And when purpose increases, peace increases. So my dear friends, do not try to eliminate emotions. Refine them. Do not try to escape feelings. Understand them. Do not try to control the world. Master yourself. Because happiness is not about having perfect circumstances. It is about having a steady inner foundation. When your roots are deep, storms become manageable. When your heart is anchored in purpose and faith, fear takes the last place. And remember that always, true success is not achieving everything you want. True success is living consciously, joyfully, and purposefully, no matter what life brings. Master your emotions, and you master your life. And before we close, I want you to remember one timeless truth. Emotions are powerful, but they were never meant to be your master. They are waves. You are the ocean. Waves rise, waves fall, but the depth of the ocean remains still. When your identity is anchored in faith, when your heart is rooted in purpose, when your actions are guided by awareness, no temporary storm can define you. You may feel anger, but you will choose compassion. You may feel fear, but you will walk with courage. You may feel uncertainty, but you will trust the journey. Because when you put God first, fear naturally takes the last place. So from today, don't pray for a life without emotion. Pray for the wisdom to handle them. Don't ask for fewer challenges. Ask for stronger character. Master your reactions. Strengthen your discipline. Deepen your awareness. Anchor your life in something eternal. And slowly, you will realize peace is not found by controlling the world around you. Peace is born when you surrender your heart to a higher purpose and take responsibility for the world within you. That is real power. That is real freedom. That is real success. Now go, live consciously. Respond wisely. And let your life be guided not by impulse, but by intention. Because true greatness is not measured by what you achieve. It is measured by how peacefully, purposefully, and faithfully you walk through every emotion life sends your way.